Stuff. I'm Greg Scott, and I've been with Red Hat for like 10 years, and the role I fill is called TAM, Technical Account Manager, and I work with the Telco Group. I live right here in the Twin Cities in Eagan, and customers are all over the country. So it's really cool to come to a local event that's right here where I live. I like that. So thank you for inviting me. And how many have been through a vulnerability audit? Like a lot of people? How many enjoyed it? Whoa, somebody raised a hand. All right, cool. I want to give you, there's some things that happen in these audits. I want to give you some information. Yes, it works. I want to give you some information you can use to find good sources of information, to find good sources of data. And I also, why would I put a picture of Reagan and Gorbachev in a computer presentation? There's a concept called trust but verify, and Reagan is the one who made that famous with Reagan and Gorbachev. And I'm a nice guy, and I have a family, and I have dogs and a cat, and so you should just trust me. But I want to give you information that you can verify what I tell you as well, and I think that's important, especially in this open source world where there's no place to hide. So trust but verify is kind of the theme. And back in 1999, a few forward-thinking people got together and they realized that security bugs were everywhere and they were getting more and more and more and more and more. And so they put together this program called CVE. There's a group called MITRE Corporation, and MITRE's not really a corporation, but they kind of are, but they kind of aren't. So they're part of the government, but they're kind of not, but they kind of are, because that's how government works. And so MITRE put together this CVE program in 1999, and that slide is the original proposal. It's on the CVE.org website today. The CVE program took off, and today MITRE is one organization among 400 and some that are part of a group called CVE.org. And what I want to show you, I'm going to show off this pointer thing here, right there. That's Red Hat. That's the first time I've ever used that green pointer. Pretty cool. We hold some positions of trust inside CVE.org. And if you look closely, there's only one other private sector company in the whole world that has the same position of trust that Red Hat has. And that's a credibility thing. The other organizations, Thales is this French kind of half government, half defense contractor. And INSIBE is the Spanish government. And JP-CERT is the Japanese. And Google is Google. And Red Hat is Red Hat. And that's it for private sector companies, Red Hat and Google. So we're already... I hate to use the word fighting above our weight class, because but we do. We kind of do. And I'm going to give you what these roles mean. A CNA is a CVE naming authority, and we are a CVE naming authority of last resort, which means if there's any disputes about how to categorize CVEs, we settle the dispute. There's not very many that can do that. And then the root role means that we train other CNAs how to be CNAs. That's pretty cool for a scrappy Red Hat company. I still think we're a scrappy company. I need to give you some numbers from CVE.org. Every time I do this presentation, I update the figures, as you can see. So we've 66,000 new CVEs in 2025 so far, from January 2nd till now. And so there's a lot of bugs, a lot of software issues that have come up. We're going to go into more detail on that in a minute. Oh, right, structure and order. There are some people who thrive on structure and order, and you can probably tell I'm not one of them. So if you have questions and concerns, or darts or eggs or tomatoes, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Don't throw tomatoes, but raise your hand and I'll call on you. Is that okay? Say yes. Yeah. Thank you. Interaction is good. Thank you. So here's a bunch of definitions. I'm not going to read all of this. CVE is a common vulnerabilities and exposure, and I told you who we are, and so on. There's no sense in reading all that stuff. And if you PDFs, I'll get you PDFs of all this presentation. There's some links on there to some really, really great stories. So you can click on the links in the PDFs. Some of these are important. CISA is the U.S. government. Right now, today, this minute, CISA pays the bills, and there's some things I'm going to say about that in a minute. And then MITRE Corporation is one player among many, but MITRE is still a big player, and it's this quasi-government R&D organization. So those are the players and some definitions. And one biggie is ZStream. You would not believe how many vice presidents freak out when you tell them about ZStreams. So Red Hat products we number our versions by X.Y.Z. So Red Hat Enterprise Linux version 9.7. some patch level. And everybody in here knows that already, right? Your managers probably don't know that. And so here's what happens. We backport patches. So we find a security vulnerability and we put it in the product and we backport it. So you'll see a new version, and you'll see an old ZStream of a new version that might not have a bug fix that a new ZStream of an old version has. That sounds weird when you say the words, doesn't it? But it kind of makes sense. We update the new we put the new ZStream in the old version, but you're running an old patch level, a new version. You haven't patched your stuff yet, so that'll freak out people in audits. Does that make sense? And now you know, and when they tell you, you can counter it. So how does this work? When somebody reports a problem, how does that turn into an official CVE record? And here's the process. Somebody discovers it, and then somebody reports it, and they request a CVE identifier. And what they'll usually do is go to whichever vendor it belongs to. So if it's a Red Hat product, they'll call up Red Hat, and they'll say, hey guys, we've had this problem. We need a CVE identifier, and Red Hat will give it to you. And then this confused me, step 4. Reserve, in this case, is a noun. It's not a verb, it's a noun. So we put the CVE into a state called reserved, and that means we've reserved the numbers, but we're not finished writing it up yet. We're not finished investigating it yet. Then when we finish investigating it, we submit it and we publish it, and now it's got an official CVE number. It's kind of what you'd expect, right? It's okay to say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's the big world. That's the overall community. How does Red Hat fit into this? So I'm going to show you the security repository. Good. If there's one URL, just one URL to remember, and so it's access.redhat.com, and anybody that's logged a support case, you've already got that burned into your brain, right? So access.redhat.com/security, and you can navigate to everything else from there. And so Red Hat keeps a human readable repository. Yes, a human readable repository of. It's always good when it's the slide you expect to see. Now I'm looking at you, and so I look back. I got to make sure we're on the right page. I'll probably get screwed up and get on the wrong page in a minute, but I'll do my best. So we keep this human readable repository, and any CVE from all the way back since time began that affects a Red Hat product, you can go through and look at the CVE. And so you can look at a write-up and what products does it affect, and when was it fixed, and or if it's not fixed yet, what do we plan to fix it? But you can do better than that. You can chase through to the Bugzilla or the Jira reports plural sometimes, and you can go back to even go to the triage team, and you can look at their comments about the CVE, and you can look at the history for who submitted it where and how it was fixed. You can chase this down to the nth detail if you need to, and that comes in handy. When you're a TAM, when you're a technical account manager, one of the rites of passage for new TAMs is the customer call comes in. We just did a security audit last week, and that audit uncovered 537,000 vulnerabilities. What's wrong with you guys that you have such terrible, horrible software? And our board of directors wants to know right now. We want to talk to a vice president about it. Does that sound familiar? And so, first of all, those 537,000 vulnerabilities, there's only been 306,000 in the whole world since time began. So no way did your audit find 537,000 vulnerabilities. That's a number bigger than infinity. So we'll narrow that down, and we'll find out that there's probably several thousand copies of a few that you found, and most of those will probably be false positives. But people freak out when they see these big numbers. So now you won't freak out because you'll be prepared. Make sense? That's just kind of an aside. I told you I don't do structure and order. So that's the human readable part, and then there's a machine readable part, and these are called VEX files, and this is new, as of a year or so ago. There used to be, everybody heard of the OVAL database? OVAL is obsolete. And if somebody does a vulnerability scan, the very first question you ask them is, what is your source of vulnerability information? And if they tell you OVAL, well, then you don't want to pay them. Because OVAL, the scan will be wrong. OVAL is not granular enough. And so a lot of people got together and put together this new standard called VEX files, and it's this XML-like language that describes every single vulnerability, and it has different states for whether it's fixed or whether it's in process. So VEX, if they use VEX files, that's a plus check mark. If they use OVAL, that's a minus check mark. I'll get in more about databases in a minute. OVAL, we're going to support OVAL through RHEL 9, even though it's wrong. But we retired it at the end of 2024. So OVAL is don't do it. Oh, I went the wrong way. I told you I was going to do that. Yes. Do you know how difficult it is to take a picture of a box elder bug? They don't like it when you. I wanted to get this bug hunting stories, a picture of a bug. That's the pun. And I wanted to get right down and get his little beady eyes. But they move. They know when you're standing in front of them with a cell phone camera and they move. So that's the best bug picture. And then this is really corny. Kernel bugs. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Boom. I wanted to tell some stories and some CVE stories, and I'll start with this one. Every computer chip in the whole world is bad, is a problem. And we lived through this in 2018, and people probably remember it. So I'm not going to go through all the details of this whole story because we've been through it ad infinitum. I've got an hour-long presentation about these side channel attacks. The point I want to get to here is lots of people in the open source community found this bug. Series of bugs. It's been around since the dawn of microprocessors and the dawn of firmware that does a bunch of optimizations. That goes back to the early 90s and the DEC RISC and the DEC alpha chips and stuff like that. That's how far back these bugs go. And some researchers found them in 2017. And long story short, there was supposed to be a period where no one was supposed to talk about it, but the Register published an article in the first part of January 2018, and everybody rushed out with their microcode fixes. So if you went to an ATM machine and tried to pull out money and the ATM machine didn't work right, there's a good chance this was why. So I bring this up. I wasn't going to use this, and that led to a bunch of CVEs. I wasn't even going to use this story, but I think it's I decided to keep it in because it's a great example of how the community worked together. Everybody worked together to find, for the common good, to find these security bugs and make sure that things get fixed. And it's just a great story. And Wired Magazine, Andy Greenberg wrote this story in Wired Magazine, and there's a link to it in there. You can read through how they discovered the bug and what came of it and stuff. It's a great story. Here's another one, Log4 Shell. Everybody remember Log4j? We're probably, nodding in the room. We're still hurting from that one. So in 2013, there was a commit with Log4j, and nobody discovered the bug until like 2021. So it went 8 years, and then there was a mad scramble to fix it. And that leads to some things. There's a couple ways to look at this. One way to look at it is, gee, what's wrong with you open source people? This bug sat there for 8 years and nobody found it. What's wrong with you guys? Are you all amateurs or what? And so you could make that argument because we're humans and we really are less than perfect. But then everybody and their cousin uses Log4j, including proprietary products for which you don't have source code. And so they have their own strict testing regimens. Just ask them. Just ask their marketing departments, and they'll tell you about their strict test. And they didn't find it either. So we're in decent company, and that leads to another way to look at it. Yeah, we found this bug. It was a problem, and it sat there for 8 years. That's bad. That's on us. But when we found it, you didn't see any spend control. You didn't see anybody. You didn't see any politicians trying to tell you that black is blue and blue is green and green is yellow. We met it head on, we fixed it, and we pushed the fix out to the world. And yeah, it was a mad scramble, and yeah, it was uncomfortable, but we also busted our butts to make it right. And no, there's nowhere to hide. Then the incentives are to not hide. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The next, which led to a bunch of CVEs. Oh crap! I went the wrong way again. I keep doing that. This one, this is one of my favorite pictures. The XZ. This picture just fits the XZ utility bug. Does anybody remember that? A few. This is a great story. There's a whole bunch of what could have been and what really happened. So the story is, yeah, this is right. Oh wait, I did it again. Right. Yeah, one more. Right there. Right there. I don't know if the key player in this story is from Nebraska or not, but anyway, you'll see. So here's the stories in the press, and we'll go here. Lassie Collin, one guy, one person. Everybody, every utility, everybody and their cousin uses XZ. It's everywhere. It's all over the place. It's embedded in everything. It's a compression utility. And so everybody and their cousin uses it. And Lassie Collin is the single one and only person that owned the whole project. He did all the maintenance of it. It's not like there's a whole lot of work to be done because it's pretty mature. Well, this other guy who called himself Gia Tan, he's one of the bad guys, spent something like 2 years ingratiating himself with Lassie and offering fixes and offering ideas. And then other people started complaining about how fixes weren't getting fixed fast enough and new features weren't coming in fast enough. And so Lassie allowed them into his repository and allowed them to put in patches. Because that's kind of what you do. If people are complaining, well, then come in and fix it. That's kind of how it works. Well, it turned out these guys weren't who we thought they were. Andres Freund from Microsoft was working on SSH, I think it was. And the timing was...
SSH?
I think, I'm not sure.
I think I know where you're going with this now.
Okay, the timing was wrong. And everything was taking just a little bit longer than it should. So he dug deep and he found this bug and he reported it, and that set off a mad scramble. This made it into test versions of Fedora and test versions of Ubuntu and test versions of a lot of things. And then we found it and got rid of it really, really, really fast. So the Chinese social engineered the one developer, and they did a masterful job of it. And they fooled this poor guy, and they almost made it into the mainstream. Almost. It never saw the light of day. And that's because one engineer inside Microsoft found it and alerted the world. Is that a cool story or what? And it's also a scary story because the next time the social engineering might be better. I promise you there's a lot of people that are soul searching about that. This is serious stuff. People can die when these things go wrong. So it's a big deal. And one more, this whole printer thing. It turned out there were some bugs with cups, the printing service. So if you have your printer, if you have a system with a printer and you plug it directly into the internet, like who would ever even do that? But you plug it directly into the internet, and then somebody can gain control of your machine. So people laughed when that bug report came in, but then they got down and fixed it. And that's the important part, they fixed it. Make sense? I thought a few stories were good. I want to give you some numbers. I hinted at this a minute ago. CVEs are a big deal. Well, here, let me just show you. There's two tables here. On the top, this is CVE.org, published CVE records, and you don't need to be a statistician to see the trend. Every year, there's a whole bunch more CVEs than there were the year before. And then look between 2023 and 2024. Part of that is kernel.org joined CVE.org. So kernel.org started reporting their bugs as CVEs. So you're going to see a jump. But 40,000 CVEs in 2024. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a big number. And then this is the second title, the second one. Yes, right there. Look at the 050. Look at this top number. So CVE numbering authorities reported CVEs, and at first, the only ones that could do it were the CNAs of last resort. But now, in 2024, and it's going to be more in 2025 when I get those numbers, but now CNAs do most of the reporting, and the CNAs of last resort only have to deal with a few of them. And that's I take that as a sign of maturity. We're getting pretty good at dealing with these software vulnerabilities and bugs and reporting. And it's spreading. Lots of people are doing it now, and that's a good thing. When everybody remembers Microsoft had their first bugs 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe it was, 20 years ago. Microsoft had these bugs, everybody freaked out. And then we had Patch Tuesday, and Microsoft turned bug reporting into a process, and now it's pretty much routine. We've all seen that progression, right? A few years later, Apple went through the same thing. There was a hair on fire Apple bug, and everybody thought Apple doesn't have bugs, and then Apple had a bug, and everybody freaked out. So then Apple matured, and they went through their process, and that happens to pretty much every vendor. It happened with security cameras a few years ago too. Pretty much everybody goes through the process. So we're into the mature process now as well. And these are some Red Hat CVE numbers. We dealt with 2,575 CVEs in 2024 and 2,900 security advisories. And that works out to, I wrote it down because I don't have it in my head, 7 a day, 6 a day, something like that, 6 or 8, 6. Somebody do the dividing. It's every single day for 365 days. It's 5 or 6 or 7 every single day. By now we're pretty good at it because we do a lot of it. And so let me show you something else. For a deeper dive, there's a Red Hat security report, because every vendor has a security report. So here, this is ours. And for a deeper dive into how those numbers shape up, there's that security report. One caveat, I found out my numbers for how many CVEs we dealt with is slightly different than what the report says. You go to the CVE you go to access.redhat.com/security and go to the CVE database and pick your date range. That's how I did it. They picked a different date range for the report, so their numbers will line up a little bit differently than my numbers, but they're all roughly the same. We're in the big leagues, so we're the 17th of 432 partner companies. We're the 17th biggest. It's a big deal. It's like Rocky Balboa. I want to give you some audit stories, some audit scan stories, and these are typical. This first one, these are from real audit scans. This one was from a couple years ago, and the scan found a Python flaw, and the scan said that the version you're running is bad, and the version that fixes it is 3.6.8-51. So you must update to 3.6.8-51. Here's the problem. The scan used the wrong Red Hat repository, the wrong Red Hat subscriptions, and assumed that the customer used the wrong Red Hat repositories. So Red Hat has a bazillion different subscriptions, and one of them is called EUS, Extended Update Service. So you can run an old Y stream and you can get security patches. And this patch really was in 3.6.8-47. That really was patched. It was patched. We could prove it. But the scan said, nope, you got to go to -51. So we went through a whole lot of trouble on that. And it turned out that the scan assumed that the scan assumed the wrong repository and didn't know about EUS. I'm going to dump on vendors, I just am, because I'm on the opposite side of it, but I also have to acknowledge audit scans are hard. They really are. It's hard. There's a bazillion details that have to be right. There's going to be false positives. And so don't let me dump on auditors too much, but I will a little bit. Oh, no, it's on the right. Okay. This one is one of my favorites. It's a library. This is my word for it. I call it a library false positive. Here's the metaphor. Anybody been in the Dakota County Library, like the Eagan, Dakota County? You've been? Oh yeah, I check out books in there. Any brick and mortar library. So forget computers for a second. You walk into this brick and mortar library, and in that library of like a bazillion books, there's 2 books in that library, and if you open those books, they're going to burn your eyes out. So don't open those books. So what do we do about that? Well, one way is we just get rid of the whole library and put in a new library. And that's about as stupid as it gets, right? That just doesn't even make any sense. But the better way is we just get rid of those books and we put in we get rid of those 2 books, fix the 2 books, right? So with software, you have a go get library, and there's a bazillion modules inside that library. And of those modules, a couple of them have a security problem. And so the vulnerability says anything built with any module in that library, in that entire library, we're going to flag it as bad. But there's only 2 modules in the whole library that are bad, but anything that uses anything in that library, we're going to flag as bad. That's a false positive. And you got to go to a lot of trouble to prove it, but those are false positives. So watch for that with audits. And then here's one from recent. This was from just a few months ago, and the customer called me and said, well, I have this, it told me about the CVE that's problem, but I can't even find it in the Red Hat database. What's wrong with you guys? You tell me you have these CVEs for everything, but then here you tell me you have these records for everything, but here's a CVE and you don't even have any record of it. What's wrong with you guys? Well, dig a little deeper, and the problem called out I don't even remember what the issue was, but the vulnerability was with kernel 6.1 point something. Well, we don't have anything with kernel 6.1 point something. RHEL 8 is kernel 4.18.533, and RHEL 9 is 5.14, and RHEL 10 is 6.12. There is no Red Hat product that uses kernel 6.1. That's why it wasn't in the Red Hat repository, and that's why they couldn't find it inside Red Hat. And that was the very first vulnerability that this scan found. So I'm gonna dump on that auditor because they didn't do a good job. So there you go. This is one of my favorites. If you're an auditor, every vulnerability is critical. I think that's one of the auditing rules. Like if you go to auditor training, probably the first thing that they say is if you find a vulnerability, it's critical. Don't let anybody tell you different. And auditors will use this database called the NVD database, the National Vulnerability Database. So here's what happens. CVE.org, we go through that process I showed you. CVE.org comes out with a CVE and a number, and somebody inside the government looks at that CVE and says, I'm going to score that one a 9 because I think that was critical. Or maybe they'll score it a 7, but some person applies judgment to it. I mean, I make it sound trivial, but they're not. I'm sure they apply some process to it. Well, that's great, but in the real world, CVEs depend on a product. So a CVE inside of one product might be critical, and a CVE inside of some other product might only be moderate or maybe important. The score depends on the CVE and its application, not just the CVE isolated. That's the problem with the NVD database. The other problem is there's just somebody in the government that applied their judgment in a vacuum, and you can't do that. So Red Hat scores CVEs, and the way Red Hat does it is with a triage team, and there's an objective criterion that you go through about how to assign the scores. And you can read about all that in the Bugzillas for every CVE, how Red Hat scores it. So anyway, forget all that. It's critical. If you're an auditor, it's critical. Fix it now. And then we can tell the board of directors what a great auditing job we did. So as and when you're the IT department or the security department, your job is to make sense of all that. Some of these really are critical and hair on fire, but not all of them and not all the time. The other thing I wanted to mention is people who don't do technology for a living, they'll see these audit reports and they'll freak out because, oh no, we have this vulnerability and it's just terrible. What's wrong with you people? And if you want to do your part to make the world a better place, help convince boards of directors and other people that don't do technology for a living that software bugs will be here forever. They're never going to go away. We're always going to have security vulnerabilities. This stuff is not toasters and it's not cars. Software does different jobs. The same software might do a little bit different job tomorrow than it does today. And somebody somewhere is going to find an angle to exploit it. That's just the nature of how software works. And so call me up and I'll help you educate people that don't do this for a living. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I'll give you a little bit of my cynicism because I haven't given you enough yet. What's the future of the CVE program? That's the very first question that comes up. So back in April, when Elon Musk was making the government more efficient, I'm just not going to go any farther with that. CISA stopped funding, the government stopped funding CVE.org. Bam, the funding came off. And then CISA, some people at CISA realized that's bad, and so they funded CVE.org for 13 more months. So the clock, that gave a 13-month window. And so what's the future of CVE.org? This organization that finds and categorizes software bugs that sets the standard that we all use now for vulnerability reporting. Okay. So what's the future going to be? Well, the bottom line is after the 13 months, we don't really know. But keep an eye on a group called the CVE Foundation. And we think, if I had to hazard a guess, my guess would be that everybody would kick in a little bit of money to the CVE Foundation, and that would do the governing, and then that would take the government out of governing, which the government probably shouldn't be in the middle of governing anyway. So that would take the government out of governing, and the industry would do it, and we'd continue to improve the program. That's what I think will happen. I don't know, but that's what I think will happen. Make sense? Next question. Who do I believe? We did this vulnerability and found a bazillion scans, and they're all critical, and you tell me they're moderate. Why should I believe you, Red Hat, and not believe what my auditor said, and I paid $1 trillion to do an audit? And the best I can offer is credibility. Trust but verify. So we'll show you the details for how we came up with the scores, and what's vulnerable, and where it affects, and what the plans are to do the fixes, and who fixed what. It's all right there. It's all right there to find, and I can teach you how to navigate your way through it. So then you can go back to boards of directors with real, verifiable facts, and that's more powerful than anybody's positioning statement in the world. Make sense? Okay, thanks. All right. And then you claim you fixed a CVE in an earlier version. When I scanned a more recent version, I found a bug, and we talked about that a little bit. There's a few possibilities, and one of the possibilities is we messed up. We're humans, and we're not perfect, and we do make mistakes. I've made one or two in my life, and so we messed up. But the odds are better that there's a ZStream backport issue that we talked about, or maybe it doesn't apply to the version, or maybe it really is moderate. We're going to fix it with the next release because it's not worth it to fix it. It's too risky to fix it it's too risky to backport to fix into the old version. So in those cases, you have to investigate and decide which answer is the right answer. And we'll help you do that. And this is a board of directors question. Why don't you just make, I've actually had people ask me that question. Why don't you just make these bugs go away? And the best I can offer is pie in the sky. That's the best I can offer. And then, that's the other one. You hear this on the radio all the time. How do I become fully secure? And that's a fantasy. That's the best fantasy picture I could find. Okay, I want to change the topic a little bit. There's two topics for this presentation. The Red Hat's got a new offering called Technical Account Management for product security. This is a big deal. We spent months and months, a couple of years, a good couple of years defining this service. And I don't think anybody's officially announced it yet, so you're hearing it here first. And I'm going to tell you an insider story that has some humor to it. As you can tell, I like humor. So the very first, how do we justify this security TAM service? And the statistics are easy to find. I got this from an IBM report. What's the average cost of a data breach? And the average cost of a data breach goes up every year. We see more attacks, and each attack gets worse, and we see it more and more and more and more. Those statistics are easy. They're trivial to find across the internet. And I don't think, you know how people make marketing cases and they throw numbers at you, and you never know if the numbers are true or not? I don't think it's even controversial that cyber attacks are on the rise, and cyber attacks are getting more important. We've all seen the sensational stories, and we've all I imagine everybody in this room has experienced a cyber attack story that never made the news, but still was gut wrenching. Show of hands, how many? Nobody raised their hands. Well, yeah. Nobody talks about it too. That's the other possibility. Well, here's what I've got some colorful stories in my own life, and so, but we don't have time. Here's the bullets about this kind of stuff that we do, and it all rotates around training and communicating and coordinating with lots of people. Technical account managers usually are people who specialize in a particular product. So I do platform stuff. Other people do Ansible. Other people do OpenShift. That's a product-focused technical account manager, TAM. A security-focused TAM does security across all products. It's a holistic approach. And so we will work to help your company improve its security posture, especially around Red Hat products. So those are the official bullets. And everybody falls asleep with bullets, except thanks for taking a picture. That's you have those to look through later. But I put together some material for salespeople to pitch this service to potential customers. And the feedback I got back was, Greg, that's too complicated. You got to have pictures. Show us pictures. A picture's worth 1,000 words. And so I went back and forth. And so here's a story with pictures. And you'll probably see the reason why I don't work for marketing after this. So this is you. That really is you. I snapped that picture earlier from right back there. That really is you. So this is you. One of the rules about security presentation is you have to have somebody in a hoodie staring at a computer monitor with stuff that looks like code. It's just one of the unwritten rules. And so this is an evil attacker who wants to penetrate your company. And I want to thank my grandson for snapping that picture of me. I own a hoodie. At night, you turn off the light and turn on a monitor, and then that's a web server /Etsy/httpd/log/access_log. That's just website log. It's not really code. And you turn off the light and the monitor. The picture just works. I think. So that's the attacker. That's the evil attacker that wants to attack you. And then this is thousands of people across the world that want to help defend you. That really is thousands of people. That's an event called Red Hat One from last year, where a lot of us really were, where we heard a bunch of presentations from vice presidents and stuff about what great place Red Hat is. So there really are thousands of people. And so then, now we'll put it all together. And so, I had to go to I'm not supposed to mention company names, so I had to go to the home improvement store. And at the home, and people said, Greg, well, you know what you guys really are? You guys are conduits. That's what you guys are. You guys are conduits to sources of information, and that's actually true. And I do like pictures. Pictures really are worth 1,000 words. So I went to the conduit aisle and I took a picture of conduit. So that's you. That's people that want to defend you. That's me. I'm a conduit to like product managers and engineers and developers and the open source community and the Red Hat product security and Red Hat information security. I'm a conduit to all these specialties. And then we keep the people that want to attack you out. So there's your picture. Should I keep my day job and stay out of marketing? It's okay to say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you. But also a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so when your managers ask you, what is this security TAM and why do we care? That picture, maybe that picture will resonate and that picture might help make it make sense. Okay, I think I've shared this before, but I'll share this is my favorite part. Security really is a process, not an event. And there are, mom and apple pie. Now we're secure and everything will always be all better. There's a little bit more of my humor. This is the most important security tool in the whole world right there. It's another royalty-free picture. You can use pictures, you don't have to look, just a mirror. Nobody, you tell your managers this when they say, why doesn't somebody fix these bugs? How come I got myself in trouble with my cell phone? It's because nobody from the NSA or the CIA or the Department of Homeland Security or the FBI or pick your acronym, Nobody stood there with you when you clicked on that button and downloaded all that crap into your phone. That's why your phone is polluted. So nobody, you did that to yourself. Hold up a mirror and you're the most important tool. There will never be any substitute for old-fashioned human judgment, no matter how smart the AI gets. Don't let anybody tell you different. So that's your most important tool. And then here are some. I thought I'd share some tactics for how to help attackers plunder you. And the first is practice security by obscurity. I've got stories around every single one of these bullets. How many people have, well, I don't use port 22 for Telnet. I use port 2222. No one's going to find me. Did I say Telnet? Sorry, SSH. Nobody's going to find me. How have you? Yeah, right. How many have heard stories like that? Just go to port 8080 instead of port 80, and nobody will know it's a website. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, security by obscurity. I had a long time ago. I had before I went to work for Red Hat, I found a customer running Windows. I forget what version, and it had a public IP address directly connected to the internet. And it was prior to, it was like Windows, before Windows XP, so there was no such thing as a permission model. And so he didn't believe me. I said, you're playing, you're like, this is not even Russian roulette. Somebody's gonna kill you. And he didn't believe me. He said, there's a bazillion people on the internet. They're never gonna find me. So I went home and I put a file on his desktop that said, Greg Scott was here, and I put this file on your desktop. And I came back, I said, see that? I did that from my house across the internet. And he said, well, yeah, but you know it was there. If you want to have fun, plug it. Take a Fedora system or just any box, and log everything that comes in. I put an IP tables rules that just logs everything that comes in, and plug that into the public internet, and just watch all the probes that try to hit it. It'll take less than 10 seconds, and you'll see probes from around the world that will try to hit it. Yeah. Security by obscurity. Oh, yeah, become a slave to checklists. I've seen, how many have seen this before? Well, we went through the checklist, we checked all the boxes, we checked everything, therefore we're safe. Well, there's compliance and there's security, and they're two different, they overlap, but they're different. And so don't buy that. And the same with becoming a slave. We practice zero trust, therefore we're safe. Yeah, good luck with that. Anybody run SolarWinds? There's an official standard for how zero trust is supposed to work, and it's a good framework. It offers value. It's a good framework. Don't let me get too cynical on you, but you have to don't be married to it. There's a different thing to look at. Don't get complacent, and don't throw security over the wall to an official scapegoat. That a lot of people are hired for that, and don't trust anybody. I told you, a mirror is the most important tool. And the bottom one, the bottom bullet there, if your managers classify your IT as an expense instead of an asset, you've got some educating to do. So here's with expense, when you go to business school, what's the first thing they teach you? Minimize your expenses. That's just like burned into your brain. That's every business 101 class. Minimize your expenses, maximize the value of your assets. So that's what the business people will tell you. So ask them flat out, is your IT an expense or an asset? And now that's got some other advantages. You're talking to them in business language. That'll freak them out because you do technology. You don't say business words, you say technology words. As soon as you say a business word, you'll freak them out. But so just say a business word like that, and then have a whole big discussion with them about whether this stuff is an asset or an expense. And you'll be better off. Everybody will be better off for it. If it's an expense, it's going to get pounded. It just is. If it's an asset, you're going to work to make it more valuable. If you do, this is stirring conclusion here. Bury your head in the sand, you're going to get bit in the butt by an alligator. That's just kind of the way it works. And so I want to say thanks to some people who helped me out with this. Premslaw Roguski, his nickname is Rogue. He helped me with the stuff with VEX files. He was one of the inventors of VEX files. There's some really, really, really sharp people at Red Hat that build this stuff. And there's some really sharp people across the open source community too that build this stuff. So I stand on the shoulders of giants. And I want to thank you too, because you're the customers that allow me to buy groceries. So thank you very much for that. And here's how to get a hold of me inside Red Hat, gscott@redhat.com. And then here's how to get a hold of me on my personal site. I write books about this stuff. And then we'll do questions and Q&A and stuff. Questions, darts, eggs, tomatoes. Yes, sir.
Kind of book.
What?
What kind of book?
Oh, what kind of books? Oh, I love you. They're not cyber thrillers. What other kind of books? So Bullseye Breach is a story about a Minneapolis-based retailer named Bullseye Stores, and these are all fiction. And so any resemblance, and it takes place in 2013. Any resemblance to any character's real or whatever is purely from the author's imagination. So that how does you think about this? How does somebody from the other side of the planet get inside of a Fortune 500 company, steal 40 million customer credit card numbers, and then turn around and sell them and make money? How does that even happen? And so read Bullseye Breach and you'll get some education about how it happens. Plus, it's a pretty good story. So I like to use fiction to present truth better than the news. And then Virus Bomb, there's a bald-headed IT guy who's the main character in both of those books.
That's not
His name is Jerry Barkley.
that,
Yeah, Jerry Barkley. And Jerry Barkley's great grandson, about 400 years in the future, will serve on the Starship Enterprise. But that's how he got his name. So Jerry never worked for the government, and he was never the captain of the football team, and he was never part of the CIA, and so nobody believes him when he tells people stuff. But he does know his way around security, and he is he's way smarter than me. And he uncovers this attack by finding a virus-infested computer at this marketing company in Burnsville. And he chases it down to the Iranians trying to attack the United States to make it look like ISIS did it. And nobody believes him. And then the FBI thinks that he's the guy that blew up the Mall of America. And so he ends up spending some time in jail till he convinces them that he's one of the good guys, not one of the bad guys. And then he helps save the world from the real attack. It's a great story. It really is. Huh? What?
Don't tell the whole story.
Well, I'm not gonna. That's all you're gonna get. Virus Bomb's a better story. Bullseye Breach has better education. And then Trafficking You, you'd like Jesse Johnson too. Jerry Barkley plays a role in Trafficking You, but Jesse Johnson's the main character. And Jesse meets this scantily clad young lady in the Minneapolis Skyways, and after a rough week, right in the Friday before Super Bowl 52, and that encounter, it leads her to going to war with a human trafficking ring. And she pays a huge price, but she wins. And it's an inspiration story. There's a lot of technology in all these stories. This audience would love these stories. So that's the three books. Fiction, and I use fiction to try to tell truth better than the news. So thanks for asking. Thank you.
Thank you.
More.